kita ada 30 second. Okey, Assalamualaikum dan selamat pagi. Terima kasih kepada peserta POLYCC LLM League 2025 yang menyertai kami pada pagi ini. Jadi jam menunjukkan 9.37. Jadi insya-Allah kita akan bersama dengan para panel industri dan juga pengarah BIPD sehingga mungkin dalam sejam lah kot. Jadi kita pada hari ini adalah merupakan satu sesi webinar lah mengenai online coaching klinik lah, di mana kita akan bantulah para peserta POLYCC LLM League kan, yang terdiri daripada pensyarah dan juga pelajar lah. Jadi kita akan bagi tips ataupun amalan terbaik lah dalam membina dataset. Jadi untuk tanpa melengahkan masa, izinkan saya lah untuk introduce ataupun memperkenalkan para panel industri pada hari ini dan juga kita amat bertuah lah kerana bersama kita pada pagi ini ialah Encik Zaidi bin Osman yang merupakan pengarah bahagian dan instruksional pembelajaran digital JPKK turut hadir pada pagi ini secara online. Kabarnya dia ada meeting tapi dia sangguplah meluangkan sedikit masa untuk bersama pada pagi inilah. Okay, terima kasih kepada Pengarah. Dan juga tidak lupa pada sebelah kiri saya Mr. Kwan merupakan Principal Solution Architect daripada AWS Malaysia.
Terima kasih Akasha. Selamat pagi semua.
Okey, mungkin kita boleh tengoklah muka panel kedua kita dan juga pengarah kita lah. Mungkin boleh ni. Okay, panel kedua kita ialah Mr. Vincent, Senior Solution Architect daripada AWS Singapore yang kata turut hadir pada pagi ini daripada live daripada Singapore. Say hi Mr. Vincent.
Hey, hi everyone. Good to be here again on live stream with everybody.
Okey, jadi kita terus pada agenda kita online coaching klinik pada ini. Jadi pertama sekali saya ingin menjemputlah Cik Zaidi bin Osman untuk memberi kata-kata aluan untuk sesi webinar pada pagi ini. Silakan Cik Zaidi. Okey, mungkin boleh onkan kamera Cik Zaidi. Alright.
Dah. Tak keluar. Sekejap. Front camera. Okey dah.
Okey. Tu macam back camera je Cik Zaidi.
Ni front camera.
Front camera.
Pun tak keluar. Tak keluar.
Kat depan kot.
Sekejap. Back camera tu. Sekejap. Dia dah lari setting ya. Sekejap.
Okey, sementara tu kita kita brief dulu. Rasanya kita akan bagi tips lah ya. Tips yang mengenai dataset ni lah. Dataset saya rasa paling banyak kata
soalan
lah daripada yang saya terima daripada peserta ialah bagaimana kita bangunkan dataset yang terbaik kan. Lepas tu mungkin ada dari satu soalan. Soalan dia macam mana kadang-kadang masukkan dataset yang sampel tiba-tiba dapat 28%. Itu persoalan dia. Itu menjadi peserta amat keliru sekali lah masa tu. Okey, nampaknya Cik Zaidi dah ready. Okey, dengan itu saya menjemputlah sekali lagi Cik Zaidi bin Osman merupakan pengarah bahagian instruksional dan pembelajaran digital untuk kata-kata aluan. Silakan Cik Zaidi.
Okey, terima kasih Cik Akasha. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan selamat sejahtera. Salam Malaysia Manani kepada semua pensyarah, staf, pelajar yang menyertai pertandingan POLYCC LLM League 2025. Hello to our panel, dua panel Hello, how are you?
Hai, selamat pagi.
Okey, terlebih dulu saya ingin mengucapkan ribuan terima kasih kepada semua dan sokongan penyertaan menggalakkan daripada Penilaian dan College Committee seluruh negara yang telah menyertai LLM ni. Tentang anda semua membuktikan komitmen yang tinggi terhadap inovasi dan pembangunan kemahiran dalam bidang kecerdasan buatan terhadap inovasi dan pembangunan kemahiran bidang kecerdasan buatan atau AI ataupun Artificial Intelligence. Sokongan ini mana dalam menjayakan pertandingan pembangunan model Large Language Model LLM secara yang motivasi. Jadi saya berharap pertandingan ini dapat memberi memotivasikan mengimplement inovasi-inovasi terkini dalam POLYCC. Pertandingan POLYCC LLM League 2025 merupakan peluang kemasan untuk semua warga POLYCC. Ia bukan sahaja platform untuk bersaing, tetapi lebih penting lagi adalah medan terbaik untuk meningkatkan kemahiran dalam bidang pembangunan model LLM, terutama dalam pembangunan.
Okey, nampaknya Cik Zaidi. Okey.
Ada sikit gangguan teknikal sikit.
Ada gangguan teknikal, tapi tak apa. Jadi kita sebenarnya Cik Zaidi amat terima kasihlah kepada sokongan dan komitmen kepada para peserta yang telah
pendidikan dan teknologi yang semakin pesat membangun.
Okey, ada balik. Saya ingat terputus ni.
Usaha ini penting untuk memastikan graduan kita kekal relevan dan kompeten dalam permasalahan kerja masa hadapan. Saya berharap pendedahan atau ilmu yang diberikan oleh para panel hari ini dapat membantu tuan-tuan dan puan bagaimana nak memantapkan tuan punya dalam pertandingan ini, seterusnya membantu usaha kita meningkatkan penjitilan di peringkat POLYCC. Saya mohon maaf tak dapat bersama lama sebab ada mesyuarat bersama ni. Tapi akhir kata saya harap sesi online coaching ini akan memberikan pendedahan dan bimbingan secukupnya kepada semua peserta. Tanyalah kepada para panel, dua panel kita yang pakar daripada AWS ni. Ia sungguhnya dapat membantu tuan-tuan dan puan-puan dalam proses menyertai pertandingan lebih mantap. Seterusnya akan berjaya di peringkat akhir nanti. Gunalah peluang ini sebaik mungkin. Selamat maju jaya kepada semua pasukan yang bertanding. POLYCC yang terbaik. Jadi kepada semua saya ucapkan terima kasih. Sekalian terima kasih.
Okey, terima kasih Cik Zaidi. Walaupun ada gangguan sedikit teknikal jadi terima kasih kepada Cik Zaidi.
Terima kasih semua.
Okey, bye Cik Zaidi. Selamat bermesyuarat. Okey. Jadi kita teruskan dengan agenda kita iaitu sesi online coaching. Jadi sebelum saya nak pass kepada panel-panel yang hebatnya, Mr. Kwan, Mr. Vincent daripada AWS Singapura. So kita nak minta bantuan peserta dulu. Seperti biasa kita nak minta peserta untuk say hi dulu. Assalamualaikum kat chatbot tu. Nak tengok jugalah chatbot tu ada tak yang berapa ramai chatbot tu.
Jom kita tanya khabar sikit.
Bukan chatbot tau, chatbot dah biasa kan. LLM chatbox. Chatbox. Jadi yang kedua ialah kita nak minta para peserta untuk share dulu. Share dulu link ni YouTube pada pagi ni.
War-warkan lagi lah kepada rakan-rakan.
Ya, betul. So kita sama-sama boleh tanyakan soalan. Inilah masa, inilah peluang kita untuk belajar tentang pembangunan dataset LLM. Bukan senang ni. Setahun sekali je. Mungkin tahun depan ada lagi atau tidak.
Kita tidak tahu.
Tak tahu. Kita bergantung pada itulah siapa yang tahu kan. Jadi kita kena ambil peluang ni untuk warga POLYCC. So untuk share dulu YouTube. Lepas tu jangan lupa subscribe. Sebab saya nak pegang tu plug. YouTube tu silver plug. Dan juga kita nak mohon juga pada peserta untuk like. Okey. Jadi boleh ke kita tengok ni chat box? Boleh tak kita munculkan chat box dengan kiraan 1 2 3? Boleh tak? Okey, tak apa. Sebelum tu kita minta, mungkin saya pass dulu kepada Mr. Kwan lah untuk mulakan online coaching clinic. Silakan Mr. Kwan.
Okey, terima kasih Kak Kasha. Selamat pagi semua. Sorry suara serak sikit. Semalam terlalu banyak karaoke. Kalau terlalu banyak lagu rock kapak. Kalau ingat banyak rock kapak macam tu dah suara dekat esok hari. So, terima kasih kepada semua hadirin yang sudi meluangkan masa untuk menghadirkan diri dalam sesi coaching klinik. So, sesi coaching klinik ini adalah bertujuan untuk berkongsi tips-tips lah. Tips-tips terbaik, best practices di mana ia boleh membantu dalam aktiviti training you punya LLM model lah. Okay. So, dalam sesi ini kita basically open lah. Ada beberapa soalan, ada beberapa kekeliruan yang diperlukan, yang perlu diperjelaskan atau dijenirkan. Kita ada expert kita. Macam for example Vincent. Vincent ini adalah hero AI/ML di ASEAN.
Ya, betul.
Dia mantap lah. He is the hero of all the AI/ML within AWS ASEAN. So
Mr. is also adjunct professor. Visiting professor one of the university in Singapore
dia macam ni lah, dia super talented.
Genius.
So nampak dia muka he's young, right? Handsome lah kan. Shy really. So of course he's very talented, very brilliant, and also he's an adjunct professor, right? And where he was sharing a lot of knowledge lah dengan universiti terkemuka di Singapore. Harap he can also try to share some of his expertise kat this part of the world, Malaysia. We are very excited lah to have Vincent kat sini. So I think let's push the questions inside. Okay, I do see some questions coming in. Okay, so selamat pagi semua. So kita ada saudara Suhairi
Cik Suhairi.
Okay.
Dr. Suhairi.
Oh, Dr. Suhairi. Oh, doktor dengan doktor.
Doktor dengan doktor.
Doktor dengan profesor. Boleh cila sikit
Ini kena bagi kat ni. That question must give to Mr. Vincent to answer.
Okay. So the question was that how's the evaluation process that was submitted to the model against the schema? What do you mean by better answer previously?
Sir, I can't recall what do you mean by the better answer, but I can deep dive in terms of the evaluation process, right? So maybe let me share my screen just to kind of like give everyone here again. Let me just zoom lecture. Yes, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Is it okay?
Can see it.
Okay. Right. So just to flash this again, right? This is exactly what's happening when you are thinking about evaluating a model. There's ultimately two ways to evaluate a model's response. So one way is that there is a specific ground truth where we compare how close the answer is semantically, right? So for example, this is there's a sentence that's generated, and then there is a model answer. And then we compare how close the answer is to the model answer. And that's how typically in most of the industry benchmarks they are applying. Now, the other way of doing AI evaluation, especially in the context of large language model, is in terms of using what we call AI critique. So essentially over here, what we are saying is that we are using a very, very large model or a set of models to look at, based on the model, the answers generated by, say, in this competition. When you submit a model, there are questions and answers are generated. We use that and we compare that against another answer from another model. Think of it like when you play game, it's like playing against a CPU, right? Playing against computer. And then we see that, okay, your answer against that model answer, whose answer is better. So that actually translates to the actual win rate. So question back from like Dr. Suhairi was, how does the evaluation details comes in? So ultimately, how the evaluator model decides if your answer is better as compared to the other model answer, so the key here, it goes down to these three criteria. So first is about accuracy. So of course, your model should be able to answer the questions accurately. So for example, in the context of TVET, because the question to domains is in TVET. So if you have a question about, okay, what is TVET policies for so and so for this year, and your answer is generated, or this year policy is so and so. So that is accurate. So that would pick off the accuracy part. But we don't just want to look at accuracy, because if it's just accuracy, it's very easy. It's very hard to tell whose answer is better, especially in a tournament of this scale when there's thousands of lecturers and students. So we look at another two criteria. The other one is around comprehensiveness and also level of detail. So for example, if you think about when you want to go for a trip on a holiday, I can ask the model, where can I go in Japan for a holiday? Give me some suggestion. Model A can say, oh, you can go to Tokyo, stay for 2 days, then go to Osaka, stay for 3 days, and then stop. So it will be accurate, but it is not comprehensive, and there's no details. Alternatively, another model that is smarter will say that, okay, you want to go to Japan, you can go to Tokyo for 2 days, and you can stay at this part of Tokyo for what and what, and you can do this activity. After that, you can take the Shinkansen over to Osaka, and then you can stay for 3 days. And in these 3 days, these are the things that you can do in Kyoto, etc. So both will be accurate. Both answers will be accurate. But you can see from here that the second model answer is much more comprehensive, and there's much more level of details. So ultimately, in this tournament, first, when ultimately you are preparing your data set, right? So you're coaching your small model. With your small model over here, which is the 3B model, a very, very small model in the context of large language model today that has billions of parameters. You are trying to train a very small model to have the ability to have to think like a professor. Trying to train a 10-year-old to be able to reason and think and provide not just accurate answer, but also detailed answer. So this is where it lies one of the secret sauce in terms of how you want to prepare your data set. So your data set should not just be answers about TVET, but your answers should ideally be comprehensive. It should be long, there should be details, and that will help you to push up the win rate as well. So maybe over to Kwan, if you want to kind of like mention that, chime in that in Melayu or anything you might want to add as well.
Thanks, Vincent. So that's really a good explanation. So secara zahirnya, like what Vincent mentioned kan, bila masa kita hantar model kita ke leaderboard, okay, leaderboard kan, ada soalan kata, macam mana we determine why 28%, kan? Kenapa 28? Kenapa bukan 50, 80 kan? So how do you actually win? And Vincent, correct me if I'm wrong, don't keep me correct here. So kita ada 50 questions, right? 50 soalan, kan? So 50 soalan tu kita dah sedia. You tak tahu. Kita dah belakang daripada soalan yang berkaitan dengan TVET, benda-benda yang ingat tak pada kita sembang pada kick off tu kan, kita ada domain-domain yang kita telah guna pakai untuk lead pelajar dan juga lead ke pensyarah dan staff kan. So domain-domain tu adalah domain-domain yang di mana soalan-soalan, 50 soalan untuk setiap liga. Okay. So dalam setiap soalan tu ada juga jawapan dia lah. Okay. So that is the reference answer, right, Vincent? So bila masa dalam pertandingan, okay, ingat tak bila peserta dia train model tu, dia guna model Meta Llama 3.1 billion parameter. It's a small model kan. Tapi what you do is that you train that model with your data set. Okay, so that's the thing about Vincent, right? The data set should be as detailed as possible and as many context as possible. So bila you dah train model you dah tahu apa jawapan dia kan. Tapi jawapan tu kena detail lah, kena ada banyak elemen-elemen, komponen inside the answers, right? Now at the same time, your small model is competing against a big model which is running on Llama Metra 3.2 70B and 90B. 90B parameter, which is a super model. But the thing about it is that model is not trained with the data set. But that model is big, right? So what happened is that when you submit your model leaderboard, okay, leaderboard kan, okay. So kita ada 50 soalan, betul tak? So kita ada soalan pertama, sekian. So model tu, kita punya back end, dia akan, okay, ada soalan pertama. So then dia akan bagikan soalan pertama untuk dijawab oleh model yang you hantarkan leaderboard lah. Dan pada masa yang sama, dia akan juga hantar soalan yang sama pada kita punya back-end tu, yang 90 billion parameter tu. Okey, dua-dua akan jawab. Okey, bila dua jawab, jawapan yang telah dijanakan, dia akan dihantar balik kepada back-end lah. So back-end akan ada satu AI model juga yang akan meng-compare, akan membandingkan jawapan daripada setiap model tu. Okay, they call it AI critic, right? They will compare both answers and choose which is the better answer. Like what Vincent mentioned, right? It's not only about accuracy, it's also about comprehensiveness and level of details. So, kalau jawapan you betul, tapi jawapan you tak cukup detail, tak cukup complete, right? Tak ada detail yang banyak. Compare dengan model yang ni, sungguh pun model ni, dia tak di-train dengan dataset yang sedia ada, tapi imagine model ni, dia dah pun train dengan internet, right? If let's say, the answer that's generated by this has more details, has more comprehensiveness, okay, you rasa siapa yang menang? Yang ni kan? So, kalah lah satu round, kan? So, let's say, soalan kedua pula. Soalan kedua pula, jawapan sama, tapi sekali ni, jawapan yang you submit tu, lagi tinggi, lagi komprehensif, lagi banyak detail. Siapa menang sekarang? Ni kan? Kalau mak ini, you dapat satu lah. So, the thing about this, kita ada 50 soalan kan? So, you go through all the 50 questions, and you will see, how many times does your model beat this model? So, kalau kita pergi 50 soalan, maknanya setiap soalan dapat 2 markah lah. So, maknanya kalau 28 tu, maknanya jawapan yang dijanakan, dia ada 14 soalan out of 50, di mana model dia, answer dia lebih baik ataupun lebih komprehensif daripada model yang besar tu lah. Bear in mind, model you sungguh punya kecil, although you are a small model, but you are supposedly trained with the data set that you have provided. So this is how you control data set, right? The more comprehensive, the more accurate, and the more details you have in your data set, then your model will get those kinds of answers better. This guy, although he's big, but he's not trained, right, with detailed data set, right? In this context, right, you might have an advantage actually, right? Sebab you ada data set. Macam ni lah, maknanya you ada soalan bocor lah. So you actually get the answers, right? So that's how it works, okay? So a lot of people say, Kwan, jawapan saya betul. Betul, tak salah. Tapi bila masa kita pergi AI kritik, the judge ni, dia bukan saja kepada accuracy, ketepatan answer, tapi juga komprehensif, kelengkapan dan juga detail answer yang diberikan. Okay?
Mungkin I pun nak nak tanya soalan sebab yang AI kritik tu yang pegang 50 question tu kan, yang the benchmark,
the backend tu
the backend tu kan. So kalau you kata komprehensif, I pun dapat soalan dia kata so in terms of komprehensif tu dalam dataset tu berapa, 100 words ke 300 words ke, ada limit ke macam mana?
So okay, the question is, Kasha's question is, so how should we plan our dataset training preparation? Right? What do you mean by comprehensive? Does it mean what's the benchmark? 100 words or 200 words per answer?
Good question. So here the thing about so we know that the answer has to be comprehensive and the answer has to be details. That is the baseline. Okay, so generally in short, a longer answer is preferred over a shorter answer. Now that being said, the thing about a longer answer, there is also a risk whereby you can go out of point. You know, it's like you keep on rambling. I can talk. It's like somebody asked a question. You don't want a short answer. Again, back to the example of I want to have a itinerary to go to Japan. So I don't want the AI to just tell me, oh, go to Tokyo for 2 days and go to Osaka for 3 days, and then short, right? I want you to elaborate. But I also don't want the model to go and talk for 5 hours non-stop and then get out of context, right? So this is where it needs a bit of experimentation. But generally what we've seen is that in previous tournament, and that is a tip for those who are here today, is that most of the time they train between about up to like 1,000 tokens. They try to go from like 300 tokens all the way up to 1,000 tokens. Now, if you're thinking what is tokens, every 4 tokens is equivalent to every 4 tokens is equivalent to 3.
Okay, dia macam ada hanging kat situ.
So dalam okay, maybe I boleh tolong Vincent sikit while Vincent is still trying to connect back. So token basically represents the output text lah, right? Typically depends on the models, right? Let's say Kwan kata biasanya dalam 1,000 konteks, 1,000 token, right? It's about 700, 800 characters lah. Okay. So Vincent seems like Vincent is disconnected.
Vincent's connected back.
Vincent, you're back online, bro.
Oh, shoot. Did I?
No worries.
Which part did you lost me?
We lost you at what is context window. How do you calculate context window? I just shared with the team that typically a 1,000 context output context, right, is literally equivalent to about 800 words or so.
Yeah. So I was saying that you want to experiment between 300 words up to like 800 words, like what Kwan said. Now there is no fixed. Okay, must it be 800 or is it 500? Because remember, the evaluator over here is not Kwan, it's not Akasha, it's not Vincent. The evaluator over here is AI, right? And even if it's human also have different preferences. So this is where you want to have a longer answer, but you also want to experiment to see which length can give you the best answer. But as a pro tip, what we've seen works pretty well is that they go from between 300 words to about 800 words per questions. Yeah.
That's quite long. That's quite long. Okay. Thank you, Vincent. Maybe we can go to the next question, Kwan.
Okay. So okay. For my AI response, should everything be in English?
For my AI, wow, super. The question even appears on live stream.
Yeah.
Nice. For my AI response, should everything be in English? Yes and no. There are some questions that is in. I need to check. Right, Akasha, there's some questions that is in Melayu, right?
Malay.
Yeah. So
Yes.
question in Melayu, in BI.
Yes. So this goes back to the question set. So the question set that's set by POLYCC in this case from Akasha's team. Out of the 50 questions, there's a big chunk of them that's in English, but there are some that is in Melayu. So what we have seen is that, well, you can choose two strategy. You can prepare answer in two different, both English and also in Melayu, or you can just go full on English. And because ultimately, one of the things about AI is that they also understand the idea between, they themselves understand multi-language. AI model, they understand multi-languages, right? So even though you train on English, you are also influencing the other language. Of course, if you train it directly on Melayu, or if there's a Melayu question, it will be more pinpointed. But what I'm saying here is that you can do either way. There are two different approach. So the best is where you can try both and then see which one works better. Yeah. But what we have seen is that there are some people they just go full English as well. Yeah.
Ini semua jasa by Akasha lah kan. He is the one who did that, right? He purposely want to give you all the banana skin. So sebab dia kata this year kita nak raise the bar. So dia campur-campur soalan jawapan dalam bahasa Melayu and also in English lah, so that so like what Vincent mentions, right? At the end of the day, bahasa tu kalau kita train dalam dua bahasa, maknanya dari segi accuracy, context, in this context, your model will be much more aware lah. Sebab kalau you train in the local language, maknanya kalau kau buat dua bahasa, okay, then the model can immediately take it and learn from it, right? Sebab kalau kau buat semua dalam satu bahasa, so bila ada bahasa yang soalan yang dalam bahasa lain kan, maknanya model tu dia kena fikir lagi penterjemahan. Kalau dibandingkan dengan model tu yang dah train dalam bahasa asal, kan, maknanya dia tak perlu sangat mentafsirkan tu kan. Kadang-kadang pentafsiran dalam bahasa yang dua bahasa berbeza, dia dari segi accuracy might not be perfect lah. That's what Vincent mentioned lah. Ideally, you want to train into a dual language so that your model has better context when it's interpreting the answers. Okay?
Yes, a good example.
Untuk bagi banana skin macam tu.
A good example is imagine I'm trying to teach in my like for example, I'm a Chinese, right? Let's say if I'm trying to teach someone about a certain topic, I can tell the person in Chinese, but this person will also understand that in English automatically because this person knows English and Chinese, right? But of course, if I want to be more specific, if I would teach the person in English. But of course, if I explain that to the person in Chinese, there is still some form of correlation. But back to Kwan's point, ideally, you can, if you tell it directly to the person in that specific language, it could do a better result because direct pinpoint, right? There's no need for translation. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I give from my side, kalau English tu, so my tips kan is based on the, especially on the untuk syarah, dia based on garis panduan tu lah. So okay, that's my tips.
Yay.
Okay, nak bagi motivate sikit.
Bagi motivate dia orang score higher lah.
Motivasi sikit.
Ini ada tip jawapan dah. Okay.
So for the student because one of the domain it was used last year kan, yang digunakan untuk topik untuk student digunakan pada tahun lepas. So that's why I try to campur-campur sikit English BI. Alright.
So we don't want to let them having too easy kan tahun ni kan. So we kasih garap sikit. Okay. So the next question that we want to take is what? Okay. How do we measure comprehensiveness and details? Right, it's like ChatGPT, right? We know there's a lot of output, but it's more towards hallucination and far from the fact. Okay.
So this is where you want to do your own self. Is where you want to do your own self. Okay, you want to evaluate it in two parts. First, when because what happened is that normally, as lecturers, I think many of us here are lecturers. When you teach something to your student, you know exactly what you are teaching, right? But over here, what we are doing is that we are generating synthetic data from ChatGPT, from Anthropic, from DeepSeek, and then we just feed all the data to the model. So first thing, most ideally, is that you want to validate your data. Is there any hallucination, right? So does your data make sense? Because the thing in AI, we always say, data in, data out. So rubbish in, rubbish out as well. So if you just purely feed words without, and there's hallucination, right? It could deteriorate the model result. So data set, there's two parts. One is, of course, you want to have rich quantity data set, right? But the quality of the data set also plays an important part. Of course, during the workshop, we never go very, very, very deep into details about how you can check for hallucination. But one way you can do as a pro tip is that you could take your data set that you generated and feed that to another model to check whether there's any hallucination. Because if you have, say, 1,000 data set rows, you will go through them. Of course, one way is that you can go through that yourself and see if it makes sense. But that could be quite onerous in terms of going through all of that, right? So what we've seen in the industry, they use a multi-model approach whereby they use one model to generate out the answer, but they use another model to check. So we say it's like auditor. We don't own self check own self, right? I come up with an answer, I don't check the answer myself. I come up with the answer, but I get another lecturer to check for me if the answer makes sense. So this is one way that you can do that to make sure that your data set quality is high. Second thing is that when you submit the model when you submit the model to train the model, you can, as part of the workshop, you have learned that you can actually deploy out the model. So what you could do also is that you can actually ask question, apart from just submitting the model to a leaderboard, you can ask question to your model and see what is the answer that's being generated, and see that is the model answer coherent. It's a bit like after you teach the student already, then now you give the student a test question, right? And then you ask the student to answer you. So that is the second way that you can use to validate and self-check if your model, if the data set that you have been using, is it good? Is there any hallucination, or do you want to do any fine-grained adjustment?
Yeah, I think Vincent, you really bring a good point here, and this is something that kita nak bagi a bit more tips lah here. So Vincent mentioned tadi, it's all about the quality. Yep. Okay, so okay lah. Let me just share with you another tips that probably help you all for more lah. And this is where Vincent also keep me, because he's not tight, right? I just try to get bang here. Okay, so number one is, while it's easy to ask ChatGPT or Patiraw to generate answers, right? However, like what we say just now, right? Patiraw ChatGPT, they are referring to the internet, right? And which is why they probably will be hallucination and whatnot, right? And remember, just now Akasha mentioned, for those domain, you actually have garis panduan. You probably have some internal documents within JPPKK, kan? So those are actually contributed to your data sets, kan? So you know that certain AI tools out there, you can load a document, you know, and generate some question answers, pairing, kan? Right? There's also another way, right, Vincent? Can we just load a particular document that has the context of the entire, ni dah bagi cheat code dah. These are giving cheat code here, right? That you can load the entire document and do your prompts and do a question and answer pairing with a bit of prompt, getting more context, getting more details, right? And do the content pairing in a certain format and generate some more questions, right? And then send it to your train model to train. So that means that your data set now literally is being referenced to a valid document that should be dokumen yang mengandungi maklumat yang sahih, tepat dan lengkap. Betul tak? So instead of following internet where data tu tak sahih, mungkin data berlambak tapi data tu betul tak, lengkap tak, detail cukup tak, kan? So kalau bergantung pada internet, memang senang je internet kan. I just type GPT, Patiro, right? Just to internet, bomb, he get you 1,000 questions, right? But like what Vincent mentioned, the quality is not about quantity, it's about the quality, right? Now, compare that if you load a document. So now the answer, the question is, where do I find those documents? Akasha dah bagi tip dah tadi. Okay? So you find those documents, read through those documents, then understand, these are the good ones, right? Then you can, you need to type one by one, question answer, right? You can get your ChatGPT or your Nova Vincent, Amazon, or even Anthropic, or even Patiro, to load the documents and create the question and answer pair. Okay. That probably will give you a much better context into our quality. Again, right, this, whatever we are doing in this competition, segala apa yang kita buat in this competition, right, adalah untuk prepare student-student, lecturer in a real world LLM fine-tuning exercise, right? If you go to the real world, right, you actually want to build your own LLMs or foundation model, right? You want to build like your Malaysian TVET LLM. You won't want to get internet information. You really nak kena ambil data yang berkaitan dalam konteks JPPKK ataupun TVET, kan? This is where you want to do. So this is why this competition is to prepare all of you, peserta, even warga JPPKK. What are the discipline for you to train or fine-tune your model?
Saya setujulah sebab kalau kita tengok pakai ChatGPT, ChatGPT pun bagi disclaimer. Dia kata jangan percaya bulat-bulat, dia kata.
Kadang-kadang dia merapu, kan?
Kadang-kadang dia merapu, kan? Jadi saya rasa pun kalau kita load dokumen tu, kita kena pastikan data tu pun betul.
Correct.
Soalan pun kena check tak? Soalan tu kan kalau kita generate banyak-banyak, sebab secara orang tanya soalan berbeza-beza, kan? So maksudnya soalan tu pun kena fulfill certain macam scope.
Dari segi soalan tu, kalau cara soalan ditanya, memang ada a bit of affecting, kan. Tapi not much. As long as the context is there, the model is good enough to take it. Now, the only thing that you really want to take note is, bila masa you train a model, make sure your data set is diverse enough lah. For example, right, you got 10 chapter, cover lah 10 chapter tu, kan, sebab you want to cover as much, right? But then like what I mentioned, you don't want to be focused. Let's say you got 100 soalan, kan? Takkan dah 80% of question cover in chapter 1, kan? You got still 9 more chapter, kan? Then if you probably take one question, you always your questions always within a particular topic. So then you end up overfitting, right, to a particular component, kan? And those so your model is not diverse enough. So the china is, that's why we talk about underfitting, overfitting. So it's about balancing the data set to be diverse, so the model is able to answer the context. All right.
Okay.
I'm okay.
Very good, Professor Kwan.
Maybe next question.
Okay.
Okay, the third question is, how should my response be structured? Sometimes AI generated numeric response like 1, 2. This is usable, or should my response be in proper sentences?
There's no preferences. Again, this is more of how there's no preferences. So ultimately, when we say that the answer, it has to be comprehensive and it should be level of details. Some questions the AI might prefer more numerical response in terms of like breaking it down, but some they prefer it to be a much more narrative format, right? So there isn't really a fixed kind of like that you have to do structured answering all the time. You can do both, and we have seen either cases work. So it just goes back to that whether you go comprehensive, whether you go structured or you go unstructured, your answer should be coherent. It should make sense, which is accurate. Second thing, then it has to be it has to have level of details and comprehensive. But whether is it structured or unstructured, that is something that is there's no hard and fast rule. Yeah.
Okay. Mungkin apa dia punya soalan tu, apa jawapan tak kisahlah dalam bulleted form ataupun dalam
Essay lah.
macam essay, tapi in the end dia masuk dalam JSON format tu, dia one line.
Correct. Format kena ada lah. Cara macam mana answer tu depends lah. Okay.
Okay,
Going
next
to
question.
Maybe this one you can take. Is there a
Repeated questions in the data set. Oops. Yeah, just put. Oops. Did I got disconnect? You got disconnected? Can you hear me?
I can hear well.
Yeah, can hear.
So how to improve score on the leaderboard? Yeah, so we answered that earlier already, but video, I don't know whether Akasha we have one from last year, but I thought to
I
share
have
some.
one from last year, how to prepare the data set. So that means because Mr. Vincent pun tekankan data set is very important. Lepas tu baru the hyperparameter. So I already prepare one video yang macam mana kita nak buat data set tu. So boleh rujuk kat YouTube channel EduTV at POLYCC. In the group pun saya ada share kat video tu. Okay, boleh rujuk balik. How to prepare.
Bawah lagi.
This one.
Is it okay if the repeated question?
Oh, this one. Okay, alright.
Can you flash that question again? Does it have a okay, good question. This is a good learning point to share learning point as well. So when you repeat question, it is okay, but it's the same as increasing your epoch. Remember during when we go through the kickoff workshop, there is different hyperparameters, right? One of the most basic hyperparameter that you must know is the concept of epoch. EPOCH, right? So epoch essentially determines how many times your data set will be reused during the training. So if you set your epoch to 1, you go through your data set 1 time. If you set your epoch to 10, you go through your data set 10 times. So if you are repeating the questions in your data set, basically what you're trying to do is that you're manually increasing the epoch for those questions. Yeah. So does it have a model? Does it have an effect? Yes. Because you are basically increasing it's basically the same as trying to increase the epoch. But for that specific few questions that you're trying to do, if you want to repeat for everything, then normally what you do is that you just set the epoch to a higher rate, and that's how you repeat.
Yeah. So maybe tambah kat sana, like what you mentioned, right? When we talk about last month kickoff too, epoch basically allows you to repeat, right, the learnings, right? So if you got your data set, by increasing the epoch, you are directly practicing the entire data set training, over and over again. While epochs helps you to get more accuracy, improve your performance training learning. However, having too many epochs will tend to overfitting. Overfitting macam you hafal kan. You just memorize the question. If you change a bit, then the model cannot answer, right? So this is basically Macam kita lah, kita always hafal, then we answer question. But let's say you twist the question a bit, right? Oh, I cannot, right? So that's how it's to be a balance lah,
Yeah.
right? So even you have a repeated question data set, if the same, then the model will not be able to think in a different way in circumstances that the question is being twisted in a way lah. So just take note of that. Okay?
So kalau macam duplicate row I mean
Itulah, dia macam tu jugalah. So
Betul,
kalau
betul.
you duplicate row, boleh. Basically, you tak perlu duplicate pun. You enhance the epoch. Maknanya you train, you run through again lah. Dia macam ni lah. You baca buku. Okay? Bila you raise epoch, the highest rate, I read. Macam hafal lah kan?
yeah.
So, the more you read, the more you repeat, maknanya the model gets trained, which is good. Tapi kalau you overtrain that, then the model macam hafal lah. So, that's what like Vincent mentioned, is can you repeat question? You can, no problem with that. Or maybe you want to, like what we talked earlier, you can change the questions in a different way, although it's the same question, but it will be asked differently, right? So at least your model has the context lah. Okay?
Alright.
Okay, question number, finally, how many to go? Okay, this atas sikit. Yang nanti kita boleh jawab lah. Berapa ya bro?
Untuk finalis untuk pertandingan akhir adalah 6 grup lah untuk pensyarah dan juga pelajar.
So setiap finale kita ada 6 daripada pelajar grup dan juga 6 daripada pensyarah staff. 6. So kita ada 12. Alright.
So kita akan bertanding pada 17 Ogos, iaitu pada hari Ahad di Shah Alam Convention Center lah.
Oh, besar tu.
Besar,
Megah.
LCD pun banyak.
LCD pun banyak. Okay.
So kita akan sarankan supaya peserta finalis tu bawa supporter sekali.
Bawa geng-geng lah sebab the hall is big, right?
Ya,
The grand finale hall is big. Kita boleh nampak berapa orang bro?
dalam 1,200 lah, macam tu lah, 500
The
lah.
room itself, the hall itself, the finale can take about 1,000 to 1,002 people. Boleh menampung 1,000 hingga 1,200 orang. So bawa geng-geng come give you all support lah. Sebab kita hadiah kan? Hadiah seorang.
Ada hadiah yang menarik. So kalau tak dapat bawa, kita ada buat secara online streaming lah. So don't worry, sebab kita ada yang vote tu. Macam Afundi tu kan.
Afundi.
So don't worry, tapi bila dah menang tu, dah jadi finalis tu, bawa supporters dan join kita secara online dan face to face. Okay, maybe you can go to the next question. Okay, macam Vincent dah jawab lah ni kan, tapi tak apa, mungkin Kwan boleh answer.
Okay, how can we test the model of she train? Okay, so soalan ni dah jawab. Maybe Vincent you can take it. I'll try to answer that first, right? So like dalam kita punya SageMaker University tadi, once you train your model, you can actually deploy the model to an endpoint, and then you can ask some questions, right? And then you can evaluate the answer lah, sama the answer tu betul tak, sesuai tak, that kind of thing lah. So this is the way you can actually test and evaluate your own models lah. Okay, with how it, whether it behaving or answering correctly or whatnot lah. Okay, so that is you can actually view lah the models on how it's answering.
Typically this is because we are running a competition, but to share how that relates back to the real world, typically in the real world you have what we call test data set and also what we call validation data set. So in this case you have the and test data set and validation data set, you have the answer to both. Because you are trying to, and then there is a clear answer to both. So you can use them to validate how your answer is scoring. But because this is a tournament, right? So we cannot show you the exact questions that is set by POLYCC. And also we cannot share with you the validation, a different set of validation data set. Instead, we share with you the topic only, which is like TVET policies, etc. But normally what happens production environment, you will have those data set that after you train, then you evaluate directly with those validation data set. So just to kind of share a flavor of what typically happens in the real world out there.
Okay, or can you share inside explanation about this scenario lah? So I think we, hopefully that answers the question, Cik Khairul. So basically, we went through lah, how do you actually test the model? Like what Vincent mentioned, we don't give you the actual questions for the 50, nor the answer to 50. Kita tak bagi soalan-soalan dan jawapan yang kita terjawab. Yang tu kita simpan kat belakang. So, apa yang you boleh buat, bila you ada model yang you dah train, you launch your endpoint, and then you boleh tanya soalan kepada endpoint yang you dah deploy tadi, and then you evaluate whether answer yang you generated by your model betul tak. Is the model generated by your answer is correct? Then you can basically have a gut feel lah. Okay, basically the model is good to go. Kan? Kalau let's say you tanya soalan, 10 soalan, then out of the 10 questions, it's not giving you the kind of answer that really fulfills what you are expecting, kan? Then probably the model is not good enough, right? Then it's going back to drawing board lah. You can train the model with a better data set, whatnot. Okay. So again, we do have a mechanism inside the tools, which is SageMaker Universal Studio, that allows you to evaluate lah the model. You can just deploy endpoint and just test it out. But again, we don't have an answer question to you all. Sebab kita kena berlaku adil lah kepada peserta lain. Right, but what you can do is you can do your own testing evaluation based on your own question and answers. Okay? Okay. Question seterusnya. What is the reason explanation? Oh, atas tu sikit, Akasha. Okay. What's the reason behind different result when using same data set and same parameter?
Okay, I can take that question. So when you think about machine learning and AI in general, there's two kinds of AI. So one, you have deterministic outcome, and then one is that you have more what we call a stochastic or probabilistic outcome, right? So a lot of times when so deterministic means 1 + 1, you always get 2. 5 + 5, you get 10. I asked the question of like, where can I go in, where are good places that I can go in Japan? You always get back the same answer. So that is deterministic kind of computation. But when you go down to the path of machine learning, especially in generative AI, we are going to stochastic and we are going to probabilistic, whereby the answer you get will be around that point, but you will not always get that same answer. It's just the way transformer architecture works. Because transformer architecture works based on the neural network, and it's based on how it predicts tokens. So when you have the sentence comes in, inside the brain of the model, there's a neural network and decides, okay, what is the probability of the token, which is the next word that I should pick. And then there'll be some randomization between them. You pick the most probable one, then you go on to the next token, you go on to the next token, to the next word. And then from there, it gives you the full answer. So because of that, that's where we get in a sense, we get to be able to ask questions of any kind, and the model is able to be reactive. But of course, the downside to that is that you will not always get the exact same answer. So with that baseline being set, so because the answers that are generated by a model could be slightly different, there are slight variances. Therefore, when the evaluator model evaluates the answer, because your first submission, you get this output, right? But when you submit with the same model, you submit the second time, you get a second output. Then there could be the evaluator model essentially are looking at two different answers, even though they are very similar, but they are still two different answers. It's not black and white, right? It's not apple to apple. So then that's where there could be some variance in the evaluation. And not just that. So you got variance at the model generation, but you also have variance in the model evaluation. For example, because the AI itself that is judging the model is also a large language model. So he can be looking at Vincent's answer, looking at Kwan's answer. Today, he prefers Kwan's answer more. Tomorrow, maybe he prefers Vincent's answer more. Let's say if our answers are very similar. Obviously, if say Kwan's answer is a lot more detailed, more comprehensive, more accurate, then hands down, Kwan's answer will always beat Vincent's answer. But if our answers are very similar, then the model needs to exercise a bit of subjective judgment. Do I prefer Kwan's answer or do I prefer Vincent's answer? And that's where but in that regard, there's also stochastic and a probabilistic nature to the model as well. So because of that different element of probabilistic element being applied at throughout the entire fine-tuning journey, that's where you see that even though you use, going back to the question by Kairu, you use the same data set, you use the same hyperparameter, you could yield a different result. But the good news is that the result shouldn't be too variant. Meaning that if you train the model with the same result, with the same data and same hyperparameter, and then you retrain it again, you shouldn't be like, oh, first time you get 10%, second time you get 60%, then there's a huge jump. This will not happen. You might get like a small variance, like 10%, 12%, or 10%, 8%, or 10%, and then 10% again. Right. So this is what happens behind the hood, behind a fine-tuning journey. Yeah. Hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, maybe next question.
Ini soalan maybe Akasha boleh jawab. Bukan, student activity.
Student activity. Okay, basically the question for student, in the domain of student, topik student tu memang dalam konteks POLYCC, Politeknik dan college community lah. Kita tak go over macam other institution lah, macam IKM ke, apa TNB ke, University ke, UPM. No, we just focus on the Politeknik dan college community. Itu je lah two keywords yang kita limitkan scope tu. So biasalah macam Mr. Vincent dan Mr. Kwan pun dah explain tadi, kalau kita guna ChatGPT dia akan cloud lah, hallucinate orang kata kan, dia merapu. So kena pastikan jawapan yang diberi tu kita kena check lah. So kita kena bagi tahu pada ChatGPT tu, kita kata generate hanya jawapan dalam konteks tu lah. Ataupun kita manually lah, kita kena betulkan, validate manually. Copy masuk dalam JSON format tu, kita kena manual lah, tukar.
So that's why important is the data yang you generate lah kan, the reference document. So like in this case, macam Tuan Kasha cakap tadi kan, so kalau domain dia adalah student activity di dalam POLYCC, dan kita kena carilah dokumen ataupun rujukan yang berkaitan dengan POLYCC sahaja. Lepas tu again lah, like what I mentioned lah, you upload a document, you can get your ChatGPT to refer to the document. Don't ask ChatGPT to refer internet again. So I dah banyak, you already a cheat code here dia. I think I said the cheat code 5 times lah.
Ataupun kita tengok website tu sendiri, jangan pergi depend on ni lah.
Correct, exactly. So aku dah bagi cheat code dah banyak kali lah.
Cheat code dah banyak.
The cheat code already given a lot of times lah.
Okay. So the next question is,
I submit my artifact.
So this will go back to the same point. If a win rate go from 4 to 0, then the question is what did you change to your data set, right? So when you change data set, ultimately data set can improve a result or it can deteriorate your result. And then we have just went through, me, Akasha and Kwan, we have went through a few questions like that already on how you can improve a data set. So ultimately, if your data set is not improving in terms of coverage, it's not improving in terms of comprehensiveness level of details, then that's where your win rate can drop from 4 to 0. And that's where when you do data science, this best practice is not to go big bang. You do something, okay, 4%, and then you apply some level of change and see if your win rate improves. If your win rate drop, then what do? You go back. It's like code, right? You revert back to your original before 0%, the 4%, and then you apply back a different set of change to the 4%. So don't continue to 4%, 0%, and then from 0% you try to pull it up to 8%. Best way. The best way is that you from 4%, okay. You see that the data set drop, okay, then let's go back to the 4% data set and try to apply a different set of changes to that and see if it increase. If it increase, that's good. Then you checkpoint, let's say 4%, it goes to 6%. Then you checkpoint to 6%, right? The 6%, what is your data set and what is your hyperparameter? And you keep to that as your baseline. And then if you train again and if it drop, then you ignore those changes, right? You go back to what you have done in that 6%. and then you apply back a different set of change, and then to see how the data set improves. Yeah.
Okay, the question is in Malay. Adakah ketepatan jawapan based on peratus kat leaderboard ataupun macam mana kita nak tahu data kita tu berkualiti dan jawapan yang kita buat tu? So,
I take it, let me take it. Okay.
Ini Mr.
So
Kwan
Kwan
boleh
bagi penterjemahan to
Hmm.
Vincent. Okay. So basically the question was that is the accuracy of the answers is based on the percentage in the leaderboard. How do we take that the data is of quality and the answers that we do is correct lah? So basically the idea is how do they know or evaluate the data that they are using is quality, right? And it's able to generate the right questions with the right context, right? Accuracy, completeness, details. I think it goes back to the same thing lah.
Yes. So ideally you don't just want to, again, like what Kwan said, he mentioned a cheat code a few times already. You want to generate the answer from the not just random generation, but if you have some contextual documents that you can feed to the model to generate, then the model can generate answer with more context, and that can help to improve at the accuracy level. But that's only the accuracy part. Then the level of comprehensiveness, the level of details, that's where you got to do a self-check or use another model to check your answer if the answer is comprehensive enough and is it coherent in terms of the way it's being generated. So there are different ways that you can apply to essentially improve the overall robustness of the data set.
So soalan jawapan Vincent simple lah. Nombor satu, refer to dokumen rujukan lah, reference document tu lah. The reference data is important lah, right? Again, don't find internet, no shortcut lah, right? Refer to the document yang betul, yang sahih dan lengkap. Then also prepare your answers, right? Also has to be accurate and also complete and also comprehensive kan. So kalau answer tu bukan setakat answer betul, kena answer yang betul dan lengkap dan ada detail, right? So like what Vincent mentioned, the way we measure is the answers, accuracy, completeness, and also details given. Okay, so that is the how you prepare data set lah. Okay, number two is basically the cheat code lah, reference document. Always follow back. Okay, harap dia menjawab soalan adik atau Puan Nurul atau Cik Nurul.
Okay, last question. Ada last question? Ada question? Oh.
So, what hyperparameters and instant profit for this week? So, maksudnya bukan, boleh tak guna selain daripada epoch dan learning rate?
So is there any way for us to use hyperparameters beyond epoch and learning rate?
There's no limit. So there's two ways that you can do fine tuning, right? So one is that you can use Jumpstart, which is the UI base that you have been using for the longest time. So you can change any of the hyperparameter that's inside there. That is generally is quite robust already. Yeah, I would say almost all the hyperparameters that data scientists use in production is there. So you can use any one of those. Only thing is that you want to be careful. It's like having a very powerful machine, right? It's like driving a car. So it's very powerful, but you need to know how to drive before you change all the gears. So if you change the wrong gear, you change the wrong hyperparameter, you might end up failing the job instead. That's why you see. So in the I think in the Telegram chat, in the WhatsApp chat, there are some that runs into a training job error. Sometimes it could be because the hyperparameter that you have set caused the training job to fail. Because training job itself is the thing about fine tuning is a very sensitive computation. So when there are things that, for example, when there's not enough memory, or when the data set has an error, or when there's hyperparameter that's overset, it could result in certain errors. Therefore, during the workshop, we only mention the key things that you want to experiment with at the start. Is epoch and also learning rate. But of course, now that we are 2 or 3 weeks into the competition already, what we've seen in the previous tournaments across other countries, other geographic, in US, in Europe, in Singapore, is that many of the participants, they then go on to experiment with more hyperparameters. But you want to do it gradually. So the keyword behind data science is always gradually. So one way is so that is jumpstart. And the other way that you want to do, if you want to say, Vincent, I want to adjust hyperparameter beyond what is available inside the jumpstart UI. Can you do that? Yes, you can. So you can do that using, within SageMaker Unified Studio, you have notebooks. But that, of course, requires you to have data science Python skills. So if you know Python, you know notebooks, you can go ahead and use a notebook and you can customize anything inside. You can create your own training script if you don't want the jumpstart training script. So you can do that. But of course, that is more for the more technically savvy audience if you have programming experience. Lastly, the question from Suhaimin is around instance type. So you have instance for now all the way up to G5 12x. Oh, sorry. 12x, yes. 12x, which is actually more than enough for TD. You can even fine-tune 8B, 9B, right? But for instance type, you have for 12B. And then, yes, we are discussing to see if we can bring on much more larger instance type later on in the competition. But that's something that we are still discussing. But for now, it's just G5 12x. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, they try to work it through. So Vincent has while we wait for the next question. So the idea here is for the finalists, we are thinking about, again, we're still trying to work on it, right? Vincent has suggested a very good idea, and we're going to discuss. Kita akan bincang dengan Akasha juga. For the finalists, we will likely want to let you all have the ability to train with the big models and the big compute. We are talking about now you are using 2x large, right? To 4x large. No, the current training.
12x. Currently is down. They have up to 12x. Up to 12x.
They can up to 12x lah. But you're starting with 2 and 4, but you can go up to 12. For finalists, we are going to go with 48. We hope that we can get that up. We're going to have discussion dengan Cik Kasha and the team. But kalau boleh, kita boleh guna 48x large. What is 48x large? 48x large is basically your NVIDIA H200. Right? Lagi laju besar, then really. So now we have to think about, Vincent, I was also thinking, if we let you all go with the H200, our model back end also has to be big, besar kan? And then you punya seteru, your punya AI model also has to be model. If not, you will go H200, you will get the 400 billion, now you 3 billion parameter, right? With H200, you can go with 400 billion parameter, 405B parameter. So that's for the finalists lah. So kalau finalists yang nak experience kan, what does it need to build your models or to fine-tune your models using the big ones, right? To 405 billion parameters on NVIDIA H200. This is a good time for you to raise the bar and get into the top 6 lah. Okay. We are also thinking lah whether we want to go with Blackwell, but that's something that we can discuss lah. So
okay.
Yeah, that will be the global first. If you do that, that will be, I think, global first tournament on P5, P6.
Yeah, that means that JPPKK telah create another history lah. Not only the biggest, but also the first organization that uses the P5, like the H200 chipsets for a gamification or learning activity. First in the world.
So para peserta ambillah peluang ni kan.
Para peserta ambillah peluang ni. Try to make to top 6. Kita nak bagi a bit of a challenge lah. Motivation lah. Jarang ada orang boleh guna H200.
Okay, maybe can we take another question? Maybe macam this question This question is, what is the best threshold for epoch and learning rate? So adakah so the optimum lah, kita kena cari we must find the optimum learning rate. So maybe Mr. Vincent?
Yes, I can take that question thanks Razali, great question. So hyperparameter, there is no, again, because data science is about experimentation, right? There is no fixed epoch and learning rate because it depends on your data set. But there are some industry best practices for that. So normally for epoch, what we've seen is that it goes from 1 to 8, sometimes 10, but maximum is 10. So if you go anything more than 10, like 20, 30, very, very unlikely that you see your result improving. So normally you want to go from between 1 to 10, many goes between 4 to 8. So I think I also paste something in the private chat. Not sure if the admin team can help to put it up in the audience chat as well. So this is a blog post written by we run a Singapore LOL league across the whole of Singapore, similar to MOHE but in Singapore across all the thousands of people as well. So this was the champion. So the champion wrote up his or her his learning on experimenting with the different epoch and a different learning rate. So epoch is normally between 1 to 8, right? For learning rate, the default, I believe, is 0.001 or 0.0001. So normally, what we've seen is that you go 10 times higher or 10 times smaller, which is 0.001 or 0.00001 from the default learning rate. So that's normally where we see is the range. Then within that range, that's where you want to experiment. But so there's optimum range, but there is no fixed optimum number. That has to be something that you got to experiment with. But the good news is that because epoch is just between 1 to 8, right? There's not a lot that you can. You can just try 2 or 3 jobs and see between the range and then see which one gets better result. Yeah.
Okay, thank you Mr. Vincent. So saya dah paste yang Mr. Vincent bagi tu, link tu. Maybe peserta pun boleh rujuk lah dan baca dan apa kata memahami lah bagaimana kita nak increase kita punya kita punya win rate lah menggunakan hyperparameter seperti epoch dan learning rate. So Mr. Kwan, so
Lagi satu question. Ada satu question.
Last question.
Last question. Parameter JSON dataset. Bawah tu, yang bawah tadi tu. I think there's a question. The other question updated. One more down, bro.
One more. Oh.
Atas sikit. Atas. Bawah.
Oh, bawah.
That's the one.
Okay, sorry. Okay. So, Mr. Vincent, you want to take?
So the question is basically, okay, go ahead, Vincent.
Yeah. So it's about if the context is not set, does it affect the output? No, it's not. It doesn't. So because right now what we are doing is pure question and answering. We are not doing when you're generating out an answer or when you're evaluating a model answer, you can give it like a rec. So normally for context kind of question is when you give the model is given a question, but the model is also given a context to answer the question. But in this case, we are not competing on any specific given context. We are just competing on just generic question and answering, right? And the question is of course on TVET policies. So in this case, even if the context is not set, it doesn't affect the output. In fact, if you look at the sample data set, the context is all empty across, so you don't really have to set the context in this case. But since the question is being asked by Idayu, just as for everyone's learning and AI literacy, you will normally set context when you are trying to evaluate or do tuning for RAG, retrieval augmented generation kind of models, where you have a question and then there's a certain context and you want the answer to generate out in a certain way. So that's where we normally provide context. If you're trying to fine tune a model that's very specific for RAG application. But in this case, we are just doing pure question and answering. So that there isn't really a need to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Vincent. Maybe soalan terakhir lah. Soalan terakhir sebelum kita tutup. Ini senang lah. Is there maximum size for data rows or is it unlimited? Well,
maximum.
Is there?
It is up to the size of the GPU. So it's all about memory. So the GPU is G5 12x large, right? So what we have seen, okay, this one again, we have done a tournament across more than 10 different places already. So I've seen champions that, okay, normally this is again a pro tip for those who join the coaching clinic. What I've seen is that the champion data set, those who get into the finals, their data set at least have 1,000 rows, at least. Okay, it could be lesser, but so far, from statistical standpoint, the finalists who get into the finals, or the win rate get pretty decent, they have at least 1,000 data set. Like how, but so I've seen champions who won with 1,000, 2,000 up to like 10,000 data set. I've seen a case when we did a tournament in Vietnam with the largest bank in Vietnam, where they did a competition across all their bankers. The top champion had 100,000 data, but that is because their domain is quite wide because it goes back to the domain, right? So if your domain is wide, then your data set have to be wide. If your domain is only very, very specific, very, very narrow, then of course you don't have to have so much data set. So, but what we have seen, but as a pro tip, you should at least, if you are thinking to get into the finals, your data set should at least have 1,000 rows. The default only have 50, by the way, and the 50 is low quality data. So that is another pro tip to the team. Yeah.
So if you want to go above 100,000, right, shouldn't be a problem, because just to share with you, like what Vincent mentioned, the GPU memory that we have in our instances are anything between 24 gig to 96 gig lah. So you have a lot of room to play, but like what Vincent mentioned, it's about the quality lah, right? And the good thing about it is, Akasha, the question, the domain is literally very narrow lah, right? So you do not need to have too many domains, but again, quality and also the completeness lah. You can benchmark 1,000 as the benchmark at least, but of course the variation, quality of data set kena ada lah. Okay. Alright.
Last question? Ada last question? That's it.
The question.
I think that's all. We have masa lah. Kita pun dah kesetukan masa. Kita pun dah sesi sudah berlangsung selama 1 jam. 1 jam.
1 jam setengah.
1 jam setengah. So terima kasih kepada peserta-peserta yang hadir pada hari ini dan juga akan tonton, sebab biasalah kita pun ada kerja masing-masing, ada yang kena pergi meeting, mungkin macam student kan tengah cuti semester, tengah bekerja. So saya nak minta bantuan kepada peserta yang tengok kita punya recording, sebab after this we end lah, dia terus ada dalam YouTube channel kita EduTV @POLYCC. So saya nak minta dia orang subscribe, like, janganlah lokek sangat, subscribe lah, like lah sikit, bagi saya nak pegang ni.
He wants to get a YouTube trophy.
So I want to hold the silver plate.
Silver plate.
Okay. So
jangan minggu depan macam mana?
Lupalah pasal Kwan akan hadir face to face di Setia Alam Mall pada 27 pukul 10, kalau 10 atau sehingga 11.30.
Kita ada coaching clinic sekali lagi. So Kwan will be in Setia Alam City Mall, kan? Physically, where kita boleh buat another one level of face-to-face coaching. Kwan will be there.
Bootcamp
bootcamp lah. Yang ni cheat code lah, another cheat code lah. Cheat code bootcamp, di mana kita akan buat perkongsian lah. Kwan akan buat perkongsian. So kalau sesiapa yang berminat untuk refer atau nak bertanya soalan, bawa laptop sekali, tunjuk sekali. Pening lah satu.
Pening lah.
So Kwan will be there to hopefully answer and also help and assist lah, and provide guidance on how you can actually do it. Ada lagi cheat code lah. Ada lagi cheat code lagi lah. How you can actually go to the top 6 lah. Okay, so kalau boleh kita jumpa 27 of July. Ahad depan Ahad depan. Okay. Lepas tu Akasha pun akan nyanyi. Sebab tu dia akan nyanyi lagu apa?
Lagu intim.
Lagu intim.
Siapa yang fan of intim ataupun yang suka intim lah, boleh datang. Selepas dah pening dengan cheat code Kwan bagi tu, so boleh kita tengok intim nyanyi lah. 1-2 lagu lah.
Viral ni.
Viral ni yang lagu macam tu. So terima kasih kepada peserta yang hadir dan akan tonton kita punya YouTube ni, recording ni. Dan juga saya, Kwan, saya akan buat satu lagi sesi webinar. Khas untuk pensyarah. Sebab kan kita ni ada main dengan report, learning rate. So kita nak buat satu sesi khas di mana kita nak ajak pensyarah-pensyarah yang dah buat training banyak kan. Bila buat training kena rekod kan. Rekod sama dia naik, turun, buat setting yang kita gunakan. So kita nak bagi peluang kepada pensyarah untuk buat penulisan. So kita akan dokumen segala setting dan penulisan tu, dan kita akan terbitkan lah di bawah jurnal JPKK. A bit more academic. This is for their promotion lah. Macam Kwan lah, nak naik pangkat kena ada dokumen. Penat-penat siang malam guide student kan. So jangan lupa, kalau siapa yang nak tengok boleh komen tak? Nak tak webinar tu? Saya nak tengok lah. Okay. So kita nak buat satu sesi khas, sebab kalau saya nak terangkan ini tak cukup masa dah. Sebab kejap lagi dah solat Jumaat. Jadi saya akan promote lah, akan bagi tahu pada grup pembimbing dan juga grup student lah pasal special webinar ni untuk kita dokumenkan segala simulation yang kita buat ni lah. Okey. Dengan itu saya rasanya saya akan nak ucapkan terima kasih kepada Kwan yang hadir di JPKK ni, Aras 6 BIPD. Pagi-pagi dah hadir. Dan juga tak lupa juga kita pada Otai, our adjunct professor, visiting professor, Mr. Vincent, jauh di sana di Singapore, for being with us online. Thank you very much for giving us very educational tips. It's not orang kata tips yang biasa-biasa. It's a very educational tips. Even this one is involved with data science actually, kan? Tapi we do it in a fun way lah, in a gamification way. So thank you very much to both of you, and also to the peserta of POLYCC LLM League 2025 for being with us today, this morning. Itu saja daripada saya. Assalamualaikum. Bye-bye.
Terima kasih semua.
Thank you.
Bye. Selamat mencuba dan selamat maju jaya.